Okay, so this is a Law of the Normal Tenyi token deck, which is trying to pull off Law of the Normal, which requires you to have 5 face-up level 2 or lower normal monsters. And then when you use this card, it sends all cards in both players' fields and in their hand to the graveyard, except level 2 or lower normal monsters. In which case, you use those monsters left on the field in order to go for some link plays in order to try to win. And then everything else is just trying to further that strategy, but also try to win, even if it can't pull off Law of the Normal, because I don't really like having a deck that's specifically trying to stall out long enough to use this one card. I wanted it to be able to win on its own without having to rely on Law of the Normal. Okay, now it's time for talking about how this deck works at the end of it. Basically, I only really got off Law of the Normal one time, and that's fine, because I did a whole bunch of deck testing with this, and this is like one of my favorite decks to do, or to deck test. And in the past, I've never had too much fun with this deck when all I did was focus on trying to pull off Law of the Normal and nothing else. Kind of, like in the past, what I could do is just stall out with Human Wave Tactics and a couple of other cards, plus high defense, level 2 or lower normal monsters. It was basically just like level 1 monsters, because back then, only the level 1 normal monsters had more than 2,000 defense. And then recently, they've released 2 new level 2 normal monsters that have 2,000 or more defense as well. And the way I used to use it back then was Law of the Normal, and Triangle Power. That was the OTK. It was using Triangle Power first, and then Law of the Normal, in order to go for the OTK. But thanks to Link monsters, you can OTK with Links. If you use like Flame Administrator, I'm sure there's a way to do it. Basically, all I found was to do like 7,500 points of damage with Boral Sword and a Digitron. It's not a full OTK, it's still pretty good. There are other ways to get over 8,000 points of damage in one turn with 5 monsters on the field, especially if you use like Needle Fiber and stuff, because there is a tuner. So, what I tried to do with this deck, the stall method doesn't really work because it's very vulnerable to destruction, both spell or trap card destruction or monster destruction. So it's kind of dead in the water once, they released more and more spell or trap card destructions besides MST. Because this is like, back then, that's when I was using it when, decks could only have 1 copy of MST. It could actually work back then, not really anymore. It kind of got power crept to the way where you couldn't really use Human Wave Tactics anymore, because this card allows you to refill your field at the end of the turn based on the amount of normal monsters destroyed that turn. Level 2 or lower normal monsters, anyway. But then the Tenyis came out, and their Tenyi field spell card protects your monsters from monster effects. So, like, Human Wave Tactics only goes off if the cards are destroyed by battle specifically. And this prevents them from being destroyed by monster effects. So, the number one way they're going to destroy your tokens, or normal monsters, is by destroying them by battle, which will allow you to use Human Wave Tactics. And also, funny enough, spell or trap card removal is even better now than it was back then. But it's gotten to the point where so many decks are only using monster cards that very few of them are main decking like Twin Twisters or stuff like that. So back rows are kind of protected, except by monster effects. So that's what the Tenyi card is for as well. This counter trap card can both protect your back row from monster effects, and if it's destroyed by a card effect, you get to special summon a Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon from your extra deck, which is great. And usually if they pop this card, they'll be too afraid to destroy your back row later on. Or if they do destroy it, they usually target the field spell card first because it's really good. It prevents your monsters, it protects your normal monsters from monster effects, and every time your opponent summons an effect monster, you get to draw 2 cards, once per turn, which is super good. If you get that effect off one time, you basically go +1, and if you get multiple, it just keeps paying in dividends. Like, normal monsters really needed this support. So the field spell card is literally the only thing that allows this deck to work, and without it, it would be garbage. And even then, it's doing okay, and that's because it's being carried pretty heavily by the 2 Tenyi cards. I'm also running triple the Tenyi Spirit, the water one, because this one has the effect where if a normal monster is destroyed by battle, like what this deck's trying to do, is get these cards destroyed by battle. You can special summon the card, and then destroy 1 monster your opponent controls. So, it gets destroyed, it comes back, and you get to destroy one of your opponent's monsters, and you can activate this effect from your hand or graveyard. It's pretty good. Also, I'm running super polymerization because basically, like, Clock Wyvern is really good in this deck because this deck's trying to bring out tokens, right? Because tokens count as normal monsters are on the field. So if they're destroyed, Human Wave Tactics will proc and allow you to special summon a real, normal monster from your deck. So this card can bring out a token when it's summoned. And also, it's a target for Cyber's Clock Dragon, whose materials are just a Clock Wyvern plus any one Link monster. 1+ Link monster. So you can use the super polymerization with this card out to just steal all of your opponent's Link monsters. Or one of these other ones, a Cyber's monster, like since I'm using Digitron, who himself is Cyber's, and a couple of other Cyber's extract monsters. That's always an option. And then I also just run a Mud Dragon of the Swamp, just in case, neither of these two options are live. Mud Dragon is much more versatile, usable against a lot of decks. Super Poly is super good in this deck, really helps. And also, Catch Copy, like, this was my searcher. This is why I only ran one copy of Law of the Normal. It's like a brand new card that just got announced. I don't think it's actually out yet. Where if your opponent searches a card, you can search any card from your deck. The downside to this card is that it's a trap card. So you can only really play it in decks that play trap cards, which this deck does. This deck is not trying to win in one turn. It is trying to basically control the field and force your opponent to destroy your cards by battle so you can Human Wave Tactics in order to potentially use Law of the Normal or just win by other means. Because, sometimes I bring out Ultimate Dragon. I actually brought it out a couple of times. It's just, I thought, DevPro kind of corrupted some of the replays because they changed dangers like this morning so that their effects no longer trigger as a cost and instead trigger as an effect. Which completely ruined any replays I had against people who played Dangers, which is a lot of them. So I actually had a lot more replays that I can't use because they use Dangers in their decks. So Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon came out a lot, because lots of people were popping this card in the back row. Because most of the time, I would just set this card by itself, to bait out Spell or Trap card removal, and then I would do other things. So, whatchamacallit, what else is there to talk about? Oh yeah. Dark Factory of more production. I kind of just tested this card out because I thought I would have lots of advantage with, normal monsters. And then I could just send them to the graveyard in order to draw cards because I want them in the graveyard so I can use Tri-White on them later. Didn't really be too helpful, but it was still helpful enough where I didn't want to remove it. So I just played at one copy. That's not proper deck building. Usually if you're going to play a card, you want to play it at multiple copies, but you absolutely don't want to see like more than one of these. And, if you do see one of them, even then it might not be super helpful. So in which case, proper deck building would indicate remove this card and run multiple copies of something else. Like more copies of Solemn Judgment, which also helps protect your back row. Another Draco Net. This card's really good. Pulls out one of the normal straight from the deck. Another Demise of the Land, since the field spell card's so crucial. More Hippo Carnivals, since I was only able to run one copy. It's just another token generator. It's a little bit better than Scapegoat, because, the reason you're bringing out tokens is to Human Wave Tactics, so you don't want to lock yourself out of summons for that turn. So if you use Scapegoat during your opponent's turn, and then they attack into it, and you want to use Human Wave Tactics, you can't, because Scapegoat locks you out of summons. Which Hippo Carnival, I don't think does. I think it just prevents you from special summoning from the extra deck, which you don't do during your opponent's turn anyway. And it also prevents them from attacking anything else except for the Hippo token. So, if they destroy the 3 Hippo tokens by battle, that ends their battle phase, because they can't attack directly. So, it's really good in this kind of deck. I just didn't have room to play more copies because it wasn't super crucial either. Like, there's other cards I'd play more copies of over this. That's what I would do to remove Dark Factory of more production. I just really liked the card, and it helped me win one of the duels. So I couldn't pull it out, for like sentimental, emotional reasons rather than cold, hard logic deck building reasons. And then the extra deck itself, like, I spent, you know, a really long time deck testing this. So there's these two cards right here, Link Devotee and Link Disciple. Both of them just require, you know, level 4 or lower Cybers monster. So, you know, I'm playing triple Digitron and I'm able to bring them out pretty quickly because this deck is really good about getting these cards out of the deck. You know, that's why I'm playing so few copies, because, like, one of the cruxes of normal monster decks is having to play normal monsters. So you want to play the least amount of them as possible. And I found just like these 4 is good enough. I'd like to play, you know, at least one more Galaxy Serpent or something, you know, to have another high attack, level 2 or lower tuner monster for some needle fiber plays. But then I also have been influenced by Hard Leg Joe, and it's like, you know, this isn't a real card in the TCG, so I probably shouldn't be using it. But it's so good. It's like a Dev Pro only thing. So I've been trying not to use needle fiber, so I just kind of cut back to one Galaxy Serpent, and it's been fine. Okay, I don't want to spend forever talking about this. This is a pretty simple concept. Master of the Tenyi. One more thing I'll talk about before we go. It's a really good Link monster that's super easy to bring out. All you need is 2+ monsters, including at least one Link monster. And since I run so many Link 1 monsters, that's easy. And then it can just destroy cards on the field? Or is it monsters? Up to the monsters. If you control no other effect monsters, you can destroy effect monsters. Yeah, it's only effect monsters your opponent controls. But you destroy them equal to the number of normal monsters you control are in your graveyard. And, you know, you can destroy up to 4 monsters, you know, because of all the normal monsters you play. It's really good. Really good in this deck, especially since it has really good Link arrows. This card's so good. I don't think I really brought it out very much, though, but I just wanted to mention it because it was really good in a couple of duels that got corrupted.